Your city is on fire. Flames are tearing through the streets. People are running, screaming, grabbing whatever they can carry. And then a fire brigade shows up. 500 men, buckets, equipment, everything you need. But they don't move. They just watch. Because their boss is busy. He's walking through the chaos, calm, unhurried, straight to the owner of the burning building. And he makes an offer. I'll buy it. Right now, whatever you'll take. The owner has seconds to decide. The fire is spreading. No one else is coming. So he sells for a fraction of what it's worth. And only then does the fire brigade get to work. This wasn't a story. This wasn't fiction. This was a Tuesday in ancient Rome. And the man doing it, he wasn't a criminal. He was a businessman. His name was Marcus Licinius Crassus. And he used schemes exactly like this to become the single wealthiest private individual in the entire history of the Roman Republic. Today, we're going to find out exactly how he did it. Rome, 115 BC, a city of marble, money, and politics. And Marcus Licinius Crassus is born right at the heart of it. His father is a consul, one of the two most powerful men in Rome. His family name opens every door in the city. He grows up at dinner tables where senators decide the fate of nations. He's being groomed for greatness, leadership, legacy, power. But Rome in the late 100s BC is a powder keg because two men are about to tear the Republic apart. On one side, Gaius Marius, war hero, man of the people. On the other, Lucius Cornelius Sulla, aristocrat, brilliant, ruthless. Between them, Rome will be soaked in blood. And the Crassus family, they're on the wrong side. 87 BC, Marius seizes Rome. The purges begin. Political enemies are hunted down in the streets. And Marcus Crassus, 27 years old, watches his father get killed. Then his brother. Their property is seized. Their name becomes a death sentence. Most men collapse here. Most men give up. Crassus runs, but not in defeat. In strategy, he flees to Hispania, modern-day Spain, where his father once served as governor, where there are still people who owe the family loyalty. But even there, it isn't safe to be seen. So he makes a decision that would define everything that followed. He hides in a cave, a sea cave on the Spanish coast. For 8 months, a man born into the Roman aristocracy, living in a hole in the rock, cold, hunted, stripped of everything, but not broken, because while Crassus sat in that darkness, he was doing something. He was thinking. He'd seen what happened when your power rested on a name, on a title, on family connections. He'd seen how fast it could all disappear. When he walked out of that cave, he wasn't going to rebuild the same thing. He was going to build something untouchable, something that didn't depend on who was in power. He was going to build wealth, real, structural, overwhelming wealth, wealth that could survive anything. 83 BC, everything changes. Sulla returns from his eastern campaigns. 7 battle-hardened legions at his back. One objective, take Rome back. And for Crassus, this is the signal. He emerges from exile, raises 2,500 men from his father's old networks, marches to join Sulla's forces. He fights well, he impresses the right people, and when Sulla marches into Rome and takes power, Crassus is right there, perfectly positioned for what comes next. Now here is where the story gets dark and brilliant. To crush his enemies permanently, Sulla introduces something called the proscriptions. He publishes lists of enemies, political opponents, former supporters of Marius, anyone Sulla wants gone. The deal is simple. If your name is on the list, anyone can kill you. The killer gets a reward. Your property goes to the state, and then it gets auctioned off. Most people look at the proscription lists and feel terror. Crassus looks at them and sees a shopping catalog. He starts buying. Confiscated land, burned houses, seized businesses. He buys everything at rock bottom prices. Because who is going to outbid him? The original owners are dead or fled. The sellers are desperate state officials. The market has collapsed. Crassus is the only buyer left standing. and he is ruthless about it. The ancient historian Plutarch writes that Crassus's reputation suffered more from this than almost anything else he ever did. He made his fortune, Plutarch says, from the misfortunes of others. But here's the darkest part. Sulla reportedly started to notice something. Names appearing on the proscription lists that hadn't been there before. Men whose only crime was owning property that Crassus wanted. Whether Crassus was actually adding names to kill lists to steal their real estate, historians still debate it. But the fact that Romans believed it, that tells you everything about the man's reputation. And while all of this was happening, Crassus was also thinking bigger. Back in Spain, he had seen something. Silver mines. Enormous, productive silver mines. He invested heavily. He bought mines. He bought the workers, slaves, to work them around the clock. But here's what made Crassus different from other wealthy Romans. He didn't just buy slaves. He trained them. At his peak, Crassus owned over 500 skilled slaves. Not servants, not field workers. Architects, builders, accountants, craftsmen, an entire professional workforce, privately owned, privately deployed. This is a man who understood something that most of his contemporaries didn't. Wealth isn't just gold sitting in a chest. Wealth is a system, and Crassus was building one. Now, let's talk about the scheme, the one that cemented his fortune, the one that made him a legend, and not entirely for good reasons. Rome in the 1st century BC, nearly 1 million people, packed into a city not built for them. Most people don't live in grand villas. They live in insulae, towering apartment blocks, 6 or 7 stories high, cheaply built, poorly maintained, lit by oil lamps, heated by open fires, packed together like kindling, and Rome burns. The Isichtuf constantly. There is no fire service, no emergency number to call. When your building catches, you deal with it yourself, or you watch it go. Crassus looks at this situation, this ongoing citywide disaster, and sees a business model. He trains his slaves as firefighters. 500 men, equipment, buckets, ladders, the most organized fire response in Rome. And then he waits, because in Rome, he doesn't have to wait long. A fire breaks out. Crassus gets the word. His men mobilize. They arrive at the scene, and then they stop. They stand and watch, because Crassus is already moving through the crowd, making his way to the building's owner, who is watching their life burn. And Crassus makes them an offer, right there, in the firelight. Sell me the building, now, whatever you'll take. The owner has seconds to. The fire is spreading. There is no one else coming. They sell for almost nothing. And the moment the deal is done, Crassus turns to his men. Put it out. Plutarch describes it with barely concealed fury. He bought properties, Plutarch writes, for a trifling sum while they were on fire. But here's what Crassus would have said in his defense. I showed up, I offered something. I didn't have to buy anything. I could have let it burn. This was a transaction, a fair one. The market spoke. And it wasn't just the burning buildings. The what of, it was the buildings next door. Owners who weren't on fire yet, but could see that they would be. Who would rather take Crassus's lowball offer than gamble on the flames stopping in time? Crassus bought those too. Then, and this is the part people forget, he rebuilt them. His slave architects designed the new structures. His slave builders constructed them, quickly, cheaply, but solidly, and then he rented them out. He wasn't just a predatory buyer, he was a developer, a landlord, running what was essentially the Roman Empire's first property portfolio business. Plutarch claims that Crassus eventually owned most of the buildings in Rome. Ancient historians exaggerate, but even if the real number was a fraction of that, the scale was extraordinary. He was collecting rent from a significant portion of a city of 1 million people. Now, the numbers. Phio are cursive. When Crassus started building his fortune, he had roughly 300 talents. A talent was about 26 kilograms of silver, already serious money. By his peak, ancient sources, including Pliny the Elder, put his total wealth at 7,100 talents, nearly 185,000 kilograms of silver. Modern economists who've tried to convert this into today's figures, come up with numbers between 170 billion and $200 billion. That is richer than Elon Musk at his 2022 peak. Richer than the GDP of most countries in the ancient world. One Roman writer recorded Crassus saying that no man could truly call himself rich unless he could afford to fund an entire army from his personal income alone, and then noted, with perfect Roman self-awareness, that only Crassus himself met that standard. So here is the question that makes Crassus genuinely fascinating. Why? He has more money than any person could spend in 100 lifetimes. Why keep going? What was driving this? The answer is buried in something Rome made very clear to every citizen who lived there. Money was respected, but it was not enough. In Rome, the things that truly elevated a man were political power, military glory, a triumph, that parade through the streets of the city, where the whole population turns out to cheer your name. That was greatness. That was what Rome actually worshipped. And Crassus didn't have it. He had never won a great war. He had never been given a triumph. He was rich, obscenely, historically rich. But he was not great. Not in the way Rome defined greatness. And the two men living alongside him, constantly, infuriatingly, were men who were Pompey the Great, military hero, crowd favorite, the man who cleared the Mediterranean of pirates in 90 days, the man who conquered the East, and Julius Caesar, politician, general, orator, a man who made every room feel like it existed for him. Crassus's wealth was his power base, but it was also, every single day, a reminder of what he hadn't achieved. So he used the money differently, not to display wealth, to buy influence. Unlike most Roman nobles, Crassus threw his doors open. He hosted banquets for thousands at a time, not dozens, thousands. He lent money to promising politicians, often with no interest charged, knowing that a senator who owed Crassus money was a senator who would think very carefully before voting against him. One of those men was a young debt-ridden politician named Julius Caesar. Crassus effectively bankrolled Caesar's early career, paid his debts, funded his campaigns, smoothed his path to power, not out of generosity, out of calculation. Because Crassus understood something that most wealthy men in history have missed. The right friends are worth more than any amount of silver. This came to a head in 60 BC. 3 men, in private, with no public ceremony, agreed to pool their power. Crassus, Caesar, Pompey, the First Triumvirate, not an official institution, not a law or a Senate vote. Just a handshake between 3 men who between them controlled the money, the military, and the popular support of Rome for the better part of a decade. They ran everything. Crassus brought the money, Caesar brought the people, Pompey brought the armies. But Crassus was never satisfied because he was still the one without a triumph. And that hunger, that need, would be the thing that finally destroyed him. 54 BC, Crassus is appointed governor of Syria. He is 60 years old, and he immediately starts planning an invasion. Not because Rome needs it, not because there's a strategic threat, but because to the east of Syria lies the Parthian Empire, Rome's greatest rival, unconquered territory, and Crassus wants a victory that will make Rome forget everything else. He wants his triumph. He wants to stand in the same sentence as Alexander the Great. He crosses the Euphrates in 53 BC, 7 legions, 40,000 men, one of the most powerful armies Rome has ever sent east. But the Parthians are not what he expected. Their general, known to history simply as the Sharina, is one of the great military minds of the ancient world, and he has no interest in fighting Rome on Rome's terms. He lures the legions deep into the Syrian desert, away from water, away from shade, away from supply lines, and then he unleashes something the Romans have no answer for. Horse archers. Thousands of them, riding in fast, loosely formed groups, shooting and retreating. The Romans form their defensive squares, lock shields, wait for a charge they can counter, but the charge never comes the way they expect. The Parthians just ride around them, circling, shooting. When the Romans advance, the Parthians fall back. When the Romans stop, the arrows resume. And when the Roman formations finally begin to crack, exhausted, dehydrated, demoralized, the cataphracts hit, armored cavalry, horses in chainmail, lances leveled, smashing into what remains of the Roman lines. The result is catastrophic. 20,000 Roman soldiers killed, 10,000 captured. One of the worst military defeats in the history of the Republic. And Crassus? Killed during a negotiation meeting, either in the fighting or murdered by a Parthian officer. He was 62 years old. Now here's where the story takes a final strange turn. The ancient sources, and this may be legend, claim that after Crassus was killed, the Parthians poured molten gold down his throat. A comment on the man, a final statement on the man whose entire life had been consumed by wealth. Even if it never happened, even if it's pure myth, the symbolism is so perfect that Rome couldn't resist the story, because that's how they wanted to remember him. The man who turned everything into money, dying with gold in his throat. So what do we take from all of this? Marcus Licinius Crassus was not a good man. He profited from civil war. He exploited disaster. He pushed every ethical boundary he ever encountered. He chased glory so recklessly that he got 40,000 people killed. But he was also extraordinary. He had the intelligence to see opportunity where others saw ruin. He had the discipline to build systematically, patiently, over decades. His fire brigade scheme, for all its ugliness, introduced organized emergency response to Rome. For the first time in history, his slave training programs were early human capital investment. His property development model, buy, rebuild, rent, noste ohever teemre hirvnen, is the same model that built real estate fortunes in every city in the modern world. And his use of money as political currency, funding allies, buying loyalty, building networks, is a strategy every major donor and power broker still uses today. The tragedy of Crassus is not that he was greedy, it's that he was brilliant, and he never learned to be satisfied. No amount of silver was enough. No political alliance felt secure. No moment of achievement ever held. He wanted to be the richest man in Rome. He achieved that. He wanted to be the most powerful man in Rome. He got halfway there. He wanted to be the greatest general in Rome. That one killed him. He died in the desert, pursued by arrows, his greatest ambition unfinished. His money outlasted him. His name survived him. And 2,000 years later, we're still talking about him, which in its own way is the kind of immortality that no amount of gold can actually buy. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more.